Well, good morning. This is the second of the little video casts about waiting on God. And today I want to talk about the value of wasting time. Now, not many people speak in praise of time wasting, but I want to. One of the things I think that stops us waiting on God is a fear of wasting time. And in this modern world, wasting time is almost the cardinal sin. If someone calls you a time waster, it's quite an insult. I remember years ago when I was interested in motorbikes, I would often look at adverts for motorcycles, and almost half of them in those days had a little note after explaining what the bike was and how much was expected in terms of money. No time wasters, please. To be a time waster, if you're trying to sell a motorbike, is to really be an annoying character. I can see that. But if you want to really criticize someone, if you want to tell them that you think their interests are a waste of time, that's a very good way of belittling whatever they're doing. Just tell someone, well, you might like doing that, or you might think it's a good idea, but actually it's a complete waste of time. You'll find that that's quite a good way to lose friends, because wasting time is one of the modern sins. There are some sins which are now virtues and fashionable, but one thing that is still sinful is wasting time. And yet, I want to urge you to waste time with God. I want you to wait on God. So I need to justify that. Why in this modern world, first of all, is wasting time so bad? If you think about it, the way God made us, many of the things that we have to do in life are a waste of time. Think how much time is spent acquiring food, preparing food, cooking food, presenting food, sharing, eating food, washing up afterwards. And without getting too biological, we all know where the food ends up after a few hours, don't we? It seems that God has made us in quite inefficient ways. He seems to think that wasting time is not such a bad thing. I agree. I think wasting time is not such a bad thing. We live in a world where money is king. And one of the things you'll often hear people say is time is money. So if you're wasting time, you are committing the cardinal sin of the modern world. You are wasting money. And if there is one God we must serve, it is the God of money. So don't waste your time, because if you do, you're being unfaithful to the God of this age. You're wasting money. Now, you'd think that the Christian churches would hold out against this, wouldn't you? After all, we worship another God. We worship the God who doesn't seem to be very worried about efficiency, doesn't seem to be worried at all about gold and silver and money and things like that. And yet, so often in the Christian churches, what we have done is we have simply baptized the attitudes of the people around us. Throughout history, this has happened. The worship of war and violence has often been justified by Christian thinkers, and the worship of kingship and oppression has often been justified by Christian thinkers. And so the modern oppression of money and time efficiency, you will also find plenty of Christian people, pastors, preachers, book writers, who will basically give you the Christian version of the common story that, well, one thing a Christian should never do is waste time, so don't do it. The first file of facts I ever saw was in the hands of an Anglican rector. I should say, for younger people, if there are any young people watching this, you don't know what a file of facts is, do you? Well, ask your dad or ask your granny what a file of facts is. Because a file of facts was one of the ways that in the 1970s and 80s people organised their time. To use a file of facts, it was basically a pen and paper interchangeable portable wallet, really. But to use it well, you had to be able to have very small writing. Didn't work for me with my big clumsy writing. And you had to be organised. Well, that didn't work for me either. But people who carried file of faxes around were not time wasters. They were people who managed their time. They were efficient. And it became for a while the standard equipment of many Christian ministers to carry a file of fax. Then it was the Palm Pilot or some other electronic assistant. Now, of course, it's the mobile phone with all those time-saving apps that you can load up on a mobile phone. So we basically fit in. We do what other people do. We manage our time and we don't waste it. There's even a text in the Bible which is used by the Christian time managers. It's that one in, I think it's Ephesians 5:16, which says that you should make the most of every opportunity, or as the old King James Bible says, redeem the time, for the days are evil. And the argument is that the way you redeem your time is by managing it well. The way that you make the most of every opportunity is making sure you have a full diary, that your time management is really on point, that you are being good with your time. Now, it's best, if you want to use the Bible to prove something that's not true, not to use it in context. Because if you read that text in the context, you'll find that it usually isn't saying what you want it to say. This text in Ephesians 5 is one of those. Because immediately after telling us to redeem the time, for the days are evil, what does the Apostle Paul do? Well, he first of all warns you against getting drunk. If you're plastered, that's a poor use of time, because drunkenness leaves you wide open to all kinds of other stupidities and sins. So what's the answer? Is it time management? Do you save yourself from being drunk by having a full diary? By being efficient in your use of time? No, it turns out that the way you do that is first of all by singing. Speak to one another with psalms and hymns and spiritual songs. Singing. Not usually recommended as a time management technique. Make melody, not just with your lips, make melody with your heart to God. That's a good use of your time. And then we're advised, after singing and making melody, we're told we should always be giving thanks in all circumstances for everything. Thanksgiving is an extremely good use of time. But of course, to the irreligious person, these things are a waste of time. What? Spend your time singing? Spend your time making melody to God? And then saying thank you to God for everything? That's quite a use of time, isn't it? Yes. Use your time well. Don't think that using your time well is using it efficiently. Wait on God. If you wait on God, that is a good use of time. You can't prove it. It may not seem effective to many people. But we don't live by the values of this age, the values of this current world. We live for God. And if we live for God, well, we're just going to use our time a lot differently. I suppose the last thing I want to say is Real worship, all real worship of God, looks like a waste of time. Think of those ladies who wasted perfume and ointment on Jesus. Now, some people think it only happened once and that the Bible writers got their facts wrong in various ways. I don't. I think there was an outbreak of ointment spilling. I think that more than one woman in more than one place and at more than one time wanted to worship Christ. And the way they worshipped him was by wasting the most valuable thing they had on him. Sometimes his feet, sometimes his head. The details varied. But whether it was 2 women or 3 women, maybe there were half a dozen more that we haven't had recorded in the Gospels. But however many people did that, they wasted a great deal of money, or at least they wasted a great deal of value on doing nothing more than spilling it all over Jesus' head, or even worse, all over his feet. What a waste. And yet, those incidents are recorded. And those women are now famous among Christian people because they wasted so much on Jesus. All worship has an element of waste in it, if you can't see the point. Think about the Old Testament temple. How much gold and cedar and stuff was wasted on building Solomon's temple. And what a waste, all those animals and sacrifices. What a waste. What about the Sabbath day? To tell a farmer in the middle of the lambing season that he's got to take a complete day off from work will feel like a complete waste of time to that farmer. If it's harvest time and it's a sunny Saturday, it's going to be hard for him to say, no, I won't harvest. I will take a day's rest. I'm going to waste time. I think you can see where I've been going with this little talk. I'm suggesting to you that waiting on God is, from one point of view, a waste of time. From another point of view, I think it's the most important thing that you can do as a Christian believer. So just waste time with God today. Make a bit of melody in your heart while you're wasting time with him. Make sure you get plenty of thank yous in with thanksgiving. And when you're talking to me, please talk to me in a psalm or a hymn or a spiritual song. We'll have a sing-song. We'll enjoy wasting time with God. Anyway, that's enough for today. Tomorrow I want to talk about fasting and how giving time to God is a bit like fasting. But that's for tomorrow. Thanks for listening, and I hope you have a blessed day as you wait on God. Goodbye.